Okay. First off, I just want to say thank you for your time. I appreciate all of you and all of your support that you show me in any which way, shape, or form that you show it. I'm gonna try and knock out this segment here between here and I guess it depends on how fast I get there. I have a fantasy football draft at 6 o'clock, so that will dictate how far this goes. I've grown kind of tired of running this segment. I know what I'm supposed to do, but I've done it enough where I guess you could say. Um, so, for me, how I am in some ways anyway. It's not, everything across the board, every circumstance is its own unique circumstance, and so that needs to be taken into account. But generally speaking, when it comes to video games, how I am is I don't. Now, there's a distinction here, and I'll go into that in a minute. But I don't like redoing things. I don't like doing that. I want to do it once. I don't want to die. I want to just keep on going and win. That's my thing. I don't like redoing segments. I hate dying and having to replay segments. I just hate it, right? So part of me not wanting to replay something is that while I'm going through a game, I am really making it a point to be extremely diligent and my concentration level is pretty high because, well, I guess it just depends. I mean, if it's a spot where there's little to no risk of, getting a game over or something, then, I can give my mind a rest. But if it's a spot where, danger exists, then, I'm going to be on full, high alert. And I'm going to be really making sure I can treat it as a situation where I'm going to do everything I can to give myself the best opportunity to not have to redo this again, right? To win on the first try, basically, right? Do it right the first time. Um, so doing grinds like this, that gets to me. Now, there's a distinction to be made here. Um, if I'm gonna try and complete a challenge that takes some practice, some homework, some preparation to do. It's not something like, I can pick up a game, be like, okay, I'm just going to do my best now. And the goal in mind is basically just to do my best, right? Then that's okay. But what I'm trying to do here, there is a large amount of preparation required. I'm used to playing a different challenge in this game, and the challenge that I'm giving myself for this particular goal, or this particular set of goals, requires that I put in quite a bit of practice, and so that in my mind, I know what's coming next all the time. I know what's coming next, and I can then not make a mistake. So to get to the point where I need to be, I gotta run a lot of. I gotta run a lot of. Well, it depends on the segment of the game. This segment of the game is probably the part that deviates the most from what I'm used to doing. And so this segment of the game was the one that was gonna, have the longest learning curve. So while I'm going through and I'm learning, I'm, getting better at something, I'm practicing and then I'm improving, then I don't really have that same it doesn't bother as much to to practice, right? To do more reps. It doesn't bother me as much. Damn it. If you weren't. So now I grab the shitty fish. That probably sets me back a round, at least one round. I don't know. Maybe 2 rounds, 3 rounds. Yeah, that might have been it if I hadn't grabbed the shitty fish. So, anyway, so long as I'm and the more reps you do, the better you're going to get. The more clean, the more crisp you're going to get, the more refined you're going to get. And it doesn't matter what the task is. You're just going to get better over time, okay? But this segment, if I were to sit down, I could list off in order off of just, memory. Basically what I'm saying is I've got it memorized. So now that I have it memorized, I don't really much want to have to continue the repetition, right? There is some polishing up that I could do. I could get cleaner. I could get crisper. I could get faster. But I'm not like my goal is not to come within a certain distance of a world record or anything like that. I don't really consider myself a speedrunner. I consider myself a dude who likes to play video games, a dude who generally thinks that he doesn't suck at video games, and a dude who likes to play challenges. I like to give myself challenges. I like to play challenges. It doesn't have to be in video games. I just like to challenge myself. But within video game framework, or the video game arena, I like to create challenges for myself in games, okay? So, in this game, for example, the challenge that I'm working on now, so I wrote a walkthrough for a low-level speed challenge, right? This wasn't like a speedrunner thing. The speedrunner stuff of today is unique in that people use real-world time to try and give themselves the time that it takes to complete a task is in the real world. Okay, that's the way it's done these days, and that's something I'm really new to. That's not my thing, really. Like I'm not a speedrunner. I'm not a professional gamer. This is something I do for pleasure, I guess, right? Something that I do for fun. But when I made my low-level speed run, I was using the time from in-game timer, right? that's how I calculated the time that it took to do stuff. And so real world time was never anything that I cared about. It's not as though it had no bearing on anything. It's just that it didn't factor into the timer on the screen, so I didn't care about it. What I was focused on the in-game timer, and so a lot of the strats that I would use or that I developed, like for example, how I would typically go about acquiring money in the world of balance is by, well, I guess it just depends on what parameters I want to restrict myself to, but if I'm going by what is the most efficient way to make money using up the least amount of in-game timer. For me, the most efficient, best way to do that I found was to steal Dragoon Boots in Zozo. That was the best money to in-game time ratio that I found. But it's a real world time drain because it's a rare steal. So every time you go into town and you fail to steal the rare on your first attempt, then you reset and try again. So the real world time is substantial. The in-game timer time is minuscule. I mean, you can literally steal, tens of thousands of dollars worth of Dragoon Boots in just a couple of minutes worth of game time. But in real world time, it's probably hours. Multiple hours. What the fuck? Okay, this... Okay, and let's... But, my first real exposure to any kind of real and modern speedrunning was somehow a number of months ago. I came across, maybe a year ago, I don't really remember honestly. At the time frame doesn't matter. But I came across some people doing speedruns for GDQ. And specifically, some of the upper echelon speedrunners in Super Metroid. And I was just completely, blown away, super impressed because, that's probably my favorite game. That's not right. I think it's arguably the greatest game ever made. Pound for pound. I think you'd be hard pressed to. So, okay. Let me explain my position here. So, I don't think that any realistic argument could be made that would definitively say that Super Metroid is not a top 3 Super Nintendo game ever made. Okay? And I would say personally that I'm not sure that they're... So in my opinion, the top 3 Super Nintendo games made, in no particular order, but in this order, actually, are Super Metroid, Chrono Trigger, and Final Fantasy VI, or 3 on the Super Nintendo, whatever you want to call it. The one with Kefka, the one we're playing right now, okay? Um, and how do I come to that determination, or how do I come to that conclusion? Um, well, it's kind of simple, right? So the way I would go about comparing two things would be to put them head to head, okay? So we'll use food as an example, okay? 'Cause- causing that. There's never any like notification on my screen. There's never any kind of audio, audible notification that says, something happened. Like blink. None of that ever happens. It's just, oh, your controller doesn't work now. It doesn't work. You have to reconnect it to the emulator. It's still connected to the computer, but not the emulator. It's like, dude. It's frustrating. I mean, I don't really hardly ever drink anymore. Like, I mean, I never had a taste for booze, but I do like beer. Good beer is good. But I just, the pleasure to pain ratio, as it pertains to alcohol, is just way out of whack for me. And probably for everybody if they're going to be completely honest about it. I mean, dating back to the first time that you ever consumed alcohol, your body was telling you, don't do this. I mean, you have to train your body to allow it to consume alcohol and to become, to become tolerant to it, because it's a poison, right? So the first time you ever consumed alcohol, assuming you had more than one beer, and even if you did have one beer, it probably affected you in a substantial way. But if you had, say, for example, 3 beers, or the, liquor equivalent of 3 beers, dude, you were messed up. I can pretty much guarantee that. Unless you're like a very, very, very large individual. I still think the first time you consumed it, if you had 3 beers in a short window of time, it would have made you feel a way that you'd never felt before, and you probably became physically ill or dizzy or whatever the situation may have been. Your mind and your body were informing you right away that there is a pain associated with what you're doing here. And over time, that really only gets worse, because the first time, I mean, you're young enough where your body will repair itself pretty quickly. So you're probably not going to have a hangover. You're not. I mean, 3 beers, you're not going to have a hangover anyway. But at a young age, when a first person, probably around high school age, I would say, would be the first time that most people would consume alcohol. They're at a party and they have some beers, or hopefully it's just a couple of beers and not shots, because shots, man, that shit will mess you up. Especially if, like, you're a smaller person, like imagine like a high school girl that is, 100 pounds dripping wet, and she has like 6 or 7 shots of something because she's never had it before, and she doesn't, really, she's just trying to fit in. Dude, that's gonna mess that person up, dude. You got this tiny little human being, and she consumes a large quantity of hard alcohol, and because you have no experience with it, you're just drinking it like it's any other fluid, not realizing, if you're drinking liquor, you really need to sip that shit, especially if you have no experience with it. Anyway, the point I'm making is, there is a very, very, very pronounced pleasure to pain ratio. If you train yourself to be able to, tolerate the effects of alcohol so that your mind and body don't immediately reject it, and you are able to moderate your consumption in such a way that you try to maximize the pleasurable aspect of alcohol. even if you are able to do that, there's going to be a pain. So that pain is always going to be there. There's going to be that price to pay. It does not go away. Now you can do things to lower the pain. You know, you can make sure you eat before you drink. You can make sure that you eat after you drink. You can make sure that you consume a lot of non-alcoholic fluids so as to replenish all of the fluids your body will be voiding, because all of your cells are going to take that alcohol and be like, give me the alcohol instead of water, because your cells are dumb in this situation. And you can take like B vitamin or B complex multivitamins and stuff before you go to bed, so that while you're sleeping, your body is replenishing all of those vitamins that your cells voided. Because what happens is when you consume alcohol, your body basically voids all B vitamins. It just dumps all B vitamins and says, hey, alcohol's better. And same thing with water. It dumps the water and says, hey, alcohol's better. Because your body is, for whatever reason, dumb when it comes to alcohol. But your mind is too. You know, alcohol is a liar. That's basically it. Alcohol is a liar, and your body, being naive, believes the lies, and your mind, being naive, believes the lies. And it's like, hey, this is fun. But ultimately, you know, there's a price to pay. And if you calculate the ratio between the pleasure and the pain that you receive from the alcohol, it's a negative. It's always a negative. Well, I shouldn't say always. There are some instances where the pleasure is so great, or the combined pleasure with the alcohol and something else is so fantastical that, you know, people will be able to come out on top, meaning that, you know, the pleasure side of the equation actually does represent a greater good than the pain side of things. But that is a one-off, and you are not going to be able to consistently recreate that situation. Pain far outweighs pleasure as it pertains to alcohol. Not only with hangovers, but you are also highly susceptible to making terrible life choices. And you know, potentially catastrophic life choices, you know. A woman is more likely to make the choice to have a one-night stand. That woman can get pregnant, and, you know, talk about a life-changing experience, man. Say, for example, a guy could make the choice of, you know, it doesn't really matter if it's a man or a woman, but we'll just use, you know, two different examples. A man can make the choice to, you know, get in the car and decide he wants to impress some people and starts driving in a way that is terribly dangerous and, you know, hurts someone or, God forbid, kills someone, okay? Talk about a life-altering decision, you know? So people could still make those choices if they had not consumed alcohol, but the odds, I'm talking about, you know, percentages here, those odds go up astronomically when alcohol is involved. People, you know, getting into violent situations goes up. People making poor choices, generally speaking, goes up. Alcohol is very, 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 very negative on the whole. Now, that doesn't mean you can't have fun and enjoy uh, catching a buzz off of alcohol. But at the end of the day, I think that unless you're in a highly controlled environment where you have eliminated almost all of the possible negative outcomes that can occur, or you've done everything you can to mitigate the potential of negative outcomes from your alcohol consumption, it's just you're still betting against the house. Odds are not in your favor, and the more times that you roll those dice, eventually those snake eyes are going to come up, man. That's all I'm saying. So it's just simply a fool's errand. Not to mention, even if you avoid all of those things, there are the health risks, You're literally poisoning yourself. But with all of that said, comparing beer, like you can compare like a fine Trappist ale to like some kind of domestic piss beer, and it's not even close. Not even close. Some of the microbreweries make some decent beer. Like there's a brewery in Wisconsin called New Glarus. They make a beer that is a semi-seasonal, or it's a seasonal beer that they make every other year. So I guess that would be a seasonal, semi-annual beer. It's called New Glarus Coffee Stout. That is the best beer I've ever had in my life, hands down. No question about it. It is absolutely amazing. And I would go so far as to say I would choose a New Glarus Coffee Stout at room temperature over any beer ice cold. That's how good it is. New Glarus does not have an interstate liquor license, so you can only legally buy that beer in the state of Wisconsin. And as I say, it's a seasonal beer, so they release it every other year. I don't remember if it is the even year or the odd year, but they release it right around the holidays. They make a pretty sizable batch, so it's not uncommon to be able to find it at various gas stations, or even like places like Walmart will carry it, in Wisconsin. But it's not uncommon to be able to find it, still on the shelves in like March or even April, following that holiday season, because they make a fairly large batch and places will carry it until they sell out of it, right? So you can find it for, maybe 6 months every other year. But it is, if you're ever in Wisconsin between the months of, say, November and March, that would be the most likely window of time to find it. Ask for it. New Glarus also makes a lot of like craft beers. Like they'll make like, cherry beer and all sorts of different stuff. Those typically come in like a larger bottle. It's like a bottle of, it looks like a bottle of wine kind of. Those are usually really, really good. The kind of thing that I mean, people, depending on how they choose to consume their alcohol, are either just going to outright abuse it and just going to just pound it and just get wasted or drunk or whatever. But if you just want, because one thing the alcohol will do is it is a bit of an enhancer if you just have a small amount of it. So if you have, a beer or two, like say you have two beers before a really good meal, two good beers before a really good meal, and then you consume plenty of non-alcoholic fluids with your meal, it's going to enhance the flavor of that meal. That meal is going to be more pleasurable. And you could equate that small amount of alcohol and use that in conjunction with a number of different events or experiences or whatever, and it will enhance those experiences. But you got to be awfully careful. You got to be really, really careful. The problem with alcohol is it's a liar and a thief. And so anytime you're associating with a liar and a thief, you need to be on guard. And ultimately, it's best to just not associate with thieves and liars, because eventually they're going to get you. They're always seeking an opportunity to do that thing which they do, which is to steal and or lie. So I'm out of those, and I don't have fire 2, so I guess we can try ice 2. I used to party quite a bit when I was in my 20s. And I've worked in bars and restaurants for a number of different years. I worked in a higher end restaurant for a while. When I first started there, they had a pretty intimidating menu. It had a lot of things on the menu that people, the average American would never have even, they wouldn't know what it was. Like, for example, a caprese salad. A lot of people wouldn't know what a caprese salad was. Even, like, just, it's not like it's a super common item. Or like, for example, an ingredient in a caprese salad would be capicola ham. People would hear capicola ham and they don't know what the hell that is. No idea. They may have had capicola, but they don't know what it is. They wouldn't be able to tell you what it is. Or, for example, they had one of their chicken sandwiches that they made had it was a homemade, and I don't like blue cheese, but one of the dressings that they had was what the hell was it now? I can't even think of the name of it right now. It doesn't really matter. But it was fantastic. I don't like blue cheese. That's not my thing. But that dressing that they put on that chicken sandwich was out of this world good. If I think about it, I'll be able to think of the name of the dressing, but I just can't. Anyway, it was homemade. They used to make everything from scratch there. In fact, before I worked there, they even made their pasta from scratch. But then, different people took over different positions and just basically ran that place into the ground. Like, I'm talking about the executive chef is what happened. They changed executive chefs, and the guy that took over, he is 100% to blame, but at the same time, if upper management would simply have... I worked in a hotel and convention center, basically. It was like a 300-room convention center. And they did a lot of banquet stuff, but they also had a restaurant and bar in there. And like I said, the menu was kind of an intimidating menu. I mean, it wasn't like outlandish, but the average American would have seen a lot of things on that menu and not known what it was. And it wasn't like outlandishly priced, It's not like we were selling like $65 plates of food. It wasn't that expensive. But the highest priced plate of food would probably have been 30 something. And that probably would have been the... Well, okay, so you could order a tenderloin there, but you could choose between like 3 different weights, right? So they didn't like have pre-packaged loins or anything like that. They would have tenderloins back there, right? The whole thing. And then they would cut a slice off of the tenderloin based on how big of a steak you wanted. Okay? So like if you wanted the biggest one, that would probably run you like 30 some dollars. I don't remember exactly how much. It's been a while since I've been there. Or it's been a while since that menu was in effect. The guy that took over, he got rid of the tenderloins completely, douchebag. Alright, so lens saving. Why the hell am I grabbing that hyper wrist? I don't need that. The pearl lance I'll use. I don't know what I need the hyper wrist for though. So anyway, having worked there when they did have the good menu there, I did learn things I didn't know. I didn't know what capicola ham was when I first started there. I didn't know what a caprese salad was when I first started there. I didn't know what a margarita pizza was when I first started there. There were a number of things in that item or on that menu that I didn't know what the hell they were. Gorgonzola, that's what it was. Gorgonzola cream sauce is what they put on that one of the chicken sandwiches. And dude, I'm telling you, that stuff was awesome. But everything that they made there was like from scratch, They would cook like for example, like a rack of pork every night. There was a bunch of stuff that they did. But everything kind of had its own tier, you know? So, like, for example, the, uh, the vegetable beef soup, that was made from scratch. Oh, what am I doing? I have to... Oh, I'm an idiot. I didn't change my party around. So the vegetable beef soup, the beef was prime rib. So like they'd make a prime rib, right? And then whatever did not sell as prime rib, they would then use that for the beef tips, right? They'd cut that prime rib up and they'd slice it too. So like so the best parts of the prime rib would be sliced, and then they would then be used to make a Philly, for example, right? A Philly sandwich. So your Philly was yesterday's prime rib. So that's a pretty good Philly. Same thing with the beef tips, you know. Whatever they didn't use to slice up for the Philly, they would use then the other parts of the prime rib for the beef tips. And they would also use that prime rib for the vegetable beef soup. So, like, there were tiers to everything, you know? Like, they would roast chickens every night. They'd stuff chickens with vegetables and stuff like that. And you could order, like, an entree with, like, it would basically be a half chicken. Or a whole chicken, I guess, if you wanted to. I guess I don't really remember the exact deals with the chickens. But if that chicken didn't sell as the entree that it was cooked for that night, then those breasts would be removed and then used to make a chicken sandwich, for example. The chickens that they cooked to stuff, or stuffed to cook, they would remove the wings and the legs and then use those. They would deep fry those and use those as drummies, right? So they'd freeze them, and then when somebody ordered an appetizer, drumsticks or wings, whatever, then they would take those, deep fry them, and slather them in whatever sauce that the customer wanted, and then that would be the hot wings or barbecue wings or whatever people wanted, right? Anyway, there were tiers to all of the food, had different levels of tiers, but it was all high quality, made from scratch stuff. It was really, really good. Mm. I think this is the last thing. I don't think I'm forgetting anything here. Alright, I'm pretty sure I got this whole thing down. I don't think I've forgotten anything. I don't think I've made any mistakes. Well, no, I did. I walked into Duncan's house before I changed my party over. But that was not anything other than a time loss, which is not a super big deal because I'm not going for any kind of like world record. This is just like a personal challenge that I'm giving myself. Come on, douche. Come on, douche! Okay, whatever. I just... I am going to, I think, make this the end. I'm not sure that I'm a fan of that game mechanic there with the, you know, the smashing ceiling. Like, what the hell is operating that shit? Okay. I do believe that's it. And I'm going to make a new save here. And I'm going to call this stream good. Like I said, I've got that draft coming up here, and that's in about 45 minutes, and I gotta use the restroom, and I should eat something. I'm kind of hungry, so I think I'll just end this here. Plus, I'm sick and tired of doing this segment anyway. I don't have a problem going through and doing the tower a few times. Although I'm pretty confident I have the tower down pretty tight. Mainly what I want to do is a number of runs against the tiers, because I'm going to have to... That's going to be different than what I'm accustomed to generally. Because generally I'm doing level 6 characters. They're all level 6. I have 4 level 6 characters when I get to this point in my typical playthrough. So... I have, I think, 6 characters now, and they're definitely not in level 6. They're substantially higher level than that. So, yeah. Anyway, I will, first I just want to say, again, thank you for your time. I appreciate all of you, and I will see you when I see you. And we'll continue this at that later date. Thank you for your time. Have a wonderful day. God bless, and we'll see you later.